On the 25th of January 2023, the Xbox and Bethesda Developer Direct had premiered, where many gamers across the nations gathered around to see what exciting announcements will be revealed. And I was not one of them. I was taking a nap that day. Later that day, I woke up from my nap and realized that, oh shoot, I missed that Xbox presentation thing. I then decided to skim through it, where I realized that I really did not miss much, and pretty much all of the announcements did not interest me. Well, all except for one, that being HiFi Rush, a rhythm-based action game that supports this beautiful cel-shaded art style and was developed by, strangely enough, Tango Gameworks, the Evil Within developers. Suddenly my disinterest when it came to all the announcements from this presentation was changed to being intrigued with this one game announcement, and upon finding out at the end of the game's trailer that it was pretty much available now and was included with Xbox Game Pass, I was pretty much sold. I stood up, went over to boot up my $500 space fridge, went on to download HiFi Rush and give it a fair go to see whether or not this game would be as fun and interesting as the trailer made it out to be. HiFi Rush is legitimately and unironically one of my favorite games of all time. Everything I could ever want from a video game in terms of gameplay, visuals, writing, music, content, and simple, pure, unadulterated fun, HiFi Rush accomplishes it and does it with flying colors. This game has pretty much captured my heart and it is simply incredible, and allow me to show you where I'm coming from. HiFi Rush stars Chai, an overly witty but oh so charming dork who aspires to be a rock star. He volunteers for a test program called Project Armstrong so he can get a robotic prosthetic arm to replace his disabled one. During the process, his MP3 player accidentally falls on top of his chest when the CEO behind Project Armstrong throws it across. This causes the MP3 player to be embedded inside Chai's chest, which makes the entire environment around him sync to the beat of the music, and also gives him this really cool guitar-shaped weapon. It is eventually discovered that Project Armstrong contains an AI program called Spectra that can cause mind control to those who have the robotic prosthetics. So it is up to Chai alongside some companions he makes along the way to take down each of the executives from Randallay Technologies and retrieve all of the passkeys needed to stop Spectra. If you couldn't tell already by the story alone or by the very amazing cutscenes, HiFi Rush's story is very lighthearted and doesn't take itself too seriously, and I absolutely adore that. Most games in the AAA industry always go with such serious narratives nowadays, so it's just nice to have a game go out of its way to give you a fun and lighthearted story. Remember when I said that Chai's embedded MP3 player causes his entire environment to sync to the beat of the music? Well, the gameplay in this game is also in sync to the beat of the music, which means that the way you play also has to be in sync to the beat of the music as well. HiFi Rush's gameplay is pretty similar to that of a third-person action game like Devil May Cry, where you have to defeat waves of enemies who are trying to stop you and you will need to pull off a series of attacks and moves to defeat them all. Only in this game you have to time the way you press the buttons on the controller in time with the background music. You would think that this would be difficult to do, but it isn't. The background music is always some kind of rock music, which is traditionally very easy to find the beat to, but also there are ways that the game assists you to finding the beat of the music. This includes the aforementioned environment, the UI bobs alongside the beat, and for those who are audibly impaired or if you just need even more assistance, you can activate an assistance bar that shows you exactly when to press the buttons. Basically, you won't have too much struggle finding the rhythm of the music to play the game, and you also won't have too much struggle trying to play the game because the gameplay controls are pretty easy to handle when you first play it. The game mainly uses two buttons in terms of attacks and combos, a light attack that can be used on every beat and a heavier attack that can be used on every second beat. And most of the really cool moves you can pull off require some combination between these two buttons. But don't think the entire game is this simple, oh no, there is more. As you progress through the game's story, the game will ease you in on more techniques you can do in combat, such as a grappling hook move, a dodge move, a parry move, and the ability to summon Chai's allies to aid you in combat and defeat certain enemies. Basically, HiFi Rush's gameplay controls is one where it is pretty simple to pick up and have fun with, but it gets a lot more fun and interesting when you master it. And hey, while I just brought up Chai's allies, I might as well talk about how great the characters in this game are. Every single character is simply a delight to see on screen. Starting with Chai himself, he is such an amazing protagonist. Being a super confident and free-spirited-like character who isn't afraid of improvising when it comes to progressing along the journey and not being afraid to be witty around his allies or even enemies. Even though Chai himself isn't the brightest tool in the shed, it's just hard to hate him because of his sincerity to help his friends and allies out. Plus, he is clearly competent enough to take down each of the antagonists of the game and is an actual threat to said antagonist. He just likes to be quippy here and there, and it never crosses to the point of him being obnoxious, which makes Chai pretty much the near perfect protagonist for a game like this. His allies are also really great too and bounce off him incredibly well. First, we have Peppermint. Being the first ally that Chai meets, we get to see the bond between the two of them grow the most. They initially start off as being annoyed by each other with how their ideas clash against each other, but they do warm up as the game progresses, up to the point where you start to get emotionally engaged with the two main heroes. Then we have Macaron, who admittedly doesn't have that much of an interesting character, but at the very least it is funny to see him be a very soft and gentle character considering his size. No, seriously, look how big he is compared to the rest of the cast here. He can pretty much squish all of his friends by slamming his fist on them. And then we have the robot, Cinnamon. He may be the funniest character in the game. His dry delivery with nearly everything he says makes him an absolute joy to listen to whenever he speaks.
So I gotta ask, cinnamon, what does it stand for?
Oh, Mr. Chai, isn't it obvious?
Of course it is. I just want to confirm it with you.
I can see you truly have no idea. How sad.
And then there's 808, the robotic cat. Besides being a way for Chai to speak with his allies from long distance, 808 doesn't really do much besides just being a really cute robot cat. Although there is a moment at the end of the game where she has the spotlight that I refrained from telling. Of course, you can't have good heroes without good villains, and HiFi Rush absolutely delivers on that. One of them is a loudmouth strong woman, one of them makes you fight her on a performance stage, even having a segment in her fight where you play a traditional rhythm game for a bit, one of them is straight up just a JoJo character. Pretty much all of the characters, both the good guys and the bad guys, are a treat to watch, especially with how good the writing for this game is. The writing for HiFi Rush is absolutely superb. I seriously can't recall a video game as of late that had made me smile and laugh as much as this game had. HiFi Rush excels in terms of having excellent comedic timing. This includes line delivery.
I don't need to explain myself to a defect. All you do is hit things with a guitar.
But I'm really good at it.
Visual humor. And HiFi Rush even breaks the mold in modern day writing by having self-aware and fourth wall breaking jokes that are actually funny. Let me explain, there's a mission in the game where Chai gets captured and separated from his friends. I played a little bit of this mission before needing to put my Xbox to sleep mode. This was around the time where we just had the stupidest weather imaginable here in the West Coast. And said stupid weather caused the doofus to run into an electrical pole and caused the power to cut from my home, which meant my Xbox had completely turned off and my quick resume of the game had been lost. I was not happy because I thought I had to play the entire mission all over again. Thankfully, when the power did come back on, I realized that the game actually auto-saved my last checkpoint, so yippee. But before I continued, I noticed that Chai was now back at the base with all of his friends, even though he was separated from them in the story. Out of curiosity, I made Chai talk to Peppermint about this, where she then proceeded to tell him to go back, as bringing up that he had been captured would be breaking her immersion, and I just had the biggest, goofiest smile on my face when I saw that. The writing of HiFi Rush knows when to have its comedic moments and when to have some of its serious moments later on in the game. I adore this game's writing. There are people online who say that the game has very cringeworthy dialogue, and while I will admit that the game can be a bit cheesy at times, the game just expresses so much charm and charisma that it can honestly get away with it being the way it is. I honestly can't believe I went as long as I did without saying anything much about the art style of this game yet, but now it is time to bring that up. The visuals of HiFi Rush are absolutely stunning. Sony can take their $70 Last of Us Part 1 remaster and shove it, because this game goes for a fraction of the price compared to that, and here I am gawking more over how beautiful HiFi Rush is. Video games using cell shading isn't anything new, but none of them have ever done it to the extent that HiFi Rush did. Everything from the bottom to the top is completely cell shaded, with every model supporting bright saturated colors and thick black outlines. The game's cell shaded art style is pulled off so well that they can pretty much use the 3D models and environments from this game and recycle them for a HiFi Rush animated series. They look that good. One thing that the game would do sometimes is seamlessly switch from using the 3D character models and environments to using full-blown 2D animation, and these moments pretty much had my eyes glued to the screen with how amazing it looked. YouTube compression can't do this game's visuals justice. It looks so sharp, clear, and colorful on the Series X. The music is also pretty good too. Funnily enough, I don't really have much to say on the game's OST besides the fact that it gets the job done and it sounds really good. Especially the lyrical tracks, they slap so hard. Once you're done with the game's story, you can continue to keep playing with just how much post-game content there is. You have a plethora of collectibles to obtain in each of the game's stages, a character customization shop where you can get alternate outfits for all of the heroes, including the cat, 3D models and jukebox music to unlock, and a giant list of in-game achievements to unlock, each of them giving rewards for completing them. My personal favorite is the one where you have to complete all of the stages in the most brutal difficulty option available, and the reward you get for doing so is a t-shirt with only the HiFi Rush logo on it, and it's called the Shameless Plug t-shirt. It's such a massive screw you reward, but I can't help but find it incredibly funny. Basically, completing the game's story is a decently lengthy experience, but 100%ing it is going to keep you busy. Did I mention that this game is $30? Included with Game Pass? The GOAT? HiFi Rush is nothing short of incredible. You can tell that Tango Gameworks had an absolute blast making this game with just how much love and care there was put into it. I intentionally left out some of the big details about the game's story since I want those of you who haven't played the game yet to give it a go. I have a suspicion that most of my viewers don't own an Xbox Series system since my content is mainly focused on Nintendo, but if you do own an Xbox Series system or at all planning or interested in getting one in the future, I highly recommend trying HiFi Rush out. You can also get this game on PC if you're interested in that platform. You can even play it on the Steam Deck, which is really cool. Anyways, yeah, this game is awesome. Also, is it just me or does 808's little ball form remind me of that Amazon Echo speaker?
First, the basics of particle blast deflection.
Dude, I could beat gaming.